Hello, my name is Michael Lee of the editor group, and today I'm going to be talking about the solution validation that we did around looking at the editing experience. And what we were looking at particularly is looking at possible new ways of interacting with the UI when you're making content for issues or comments. And what we wanted to do is just isolate the kind of scenario around inserting blocks and then changing the formatting of text. So some of the hypotheses that we used to frame this solution validation was one, providing a mechanism to insert the block in the editor will allow users to insert elements closer to where they're currently positioned in the editor. And for this, we were testing to test this hypothesis out. We were thinking of introducing a block insert tool when a new line is displayed so that it could show all the options to the users of possible elements that could be added. The second hypothesis was providing ways to format text in a pop-up menu will allow users to access actions closer to the highlighted text. And to test this, we wanted to introduce a popover menu with options focused around highlighting so that users can select the right actions such as bold. And finally, the last hypothesis was one where we wanted to explore a new icon pattern. So here we think that using the block quote icon will help. Updating that icon will help users find the block quote easier. So this is a change from using quotes to using a vertical line with 3 lines. And this icon is also used in such applications as Slack. So we feel like that is something that is already used in production in other applications, and it might bode well for us, as well as looking more in line with our new direction around icon aesthetics. So let's jump into some of the prototypes that we did here. So here is one of the prototypes. It's fully interactable. We kind of mocked up a issue page, and in here we wanted people to highlight the text. So some of the actions were like to highlight the text and then to bold it, or to create a new H2 heading. So something like this. Call that like an overview. We wanted to test the icon, and we did that by asking people to highlight it and then seeing what they would choose for quotes here. So the correct answer was this line with vertical line with 3 lines. And then the last thing we wanted to do was see if people could add this into a list. So one way to do that is to go 1, 2, 3. Another way some other people did that was 1. So they did this, and then 2, 3. So the beauty of this is that there is some markup already inside here. So another way some people did this was looking at heading. And we also wanted to see if people understood that this icon was tables and just inserting tables like this. And people were generally content with this. A lot of people were looking for more options around the table, such as adding another row or column. These features are available, but for the scope of this solution validation, we just wanted to keep it simple. And we tested this pattern where everything was generally hidden until you started interacting with it. And the other pattern we went with to test was looking at a toolbar at the top, so it's always visible. So same kind of actions. If you highlight over this, instead of a pop-up menu, you have this. But one interesting thing that we did here was that we still kept the floating menu here, so that if you press enter, we wanted to see if people would click one of these things and one of these options here closer to the content versus the toolbar, and as the signs say that yes, this is a positive direction, that like something around the floating bar at that level works really well for people. So yeah, so let's jump into the findings in more detail. So providing a mechanism to insert a block editor will allow users to insert elements closer to where they're currently positioned. So like I showed you earlier, this is when you pressed enter and there was a new kind of menu that pops up. That resonated really well. People tend to use that more than the toolbar when they're actually working with the content itself. So future direction here is to explore further of what the ideal look and feel and styling of that floating menu will be to make a more integrated experience within GitLab. The next area I want to cover is providing ways to format the text in a pop-up menu and will allow users to access actions closer to the highlighted text. So this is the idea of highlighting the words, and then a menu pops up here. So this works fine for something like formatting, but if it existed here, people also expected to get options to change the heading sizes with this menu as well. So this idea works, but there's limitations in it where if you don't include everything that the user expects, then it will be a negative experience, as well as people actually preferred the variation with the toolbars at the top because that gives them a better understanding of what's possible. We recognize that this is users coming into this experience with some experience with GitLab, so they're used to having a toolbar at the top, so that may bias kind of that feedback, but there is some familiarity of like, okay, this is what I might be able to do when you see the options available versus a blank slate. So that's something the team's going to be exploring down the road about what's the right balance between a toolbar versus a full modern interaction experience around editing. And then finally, the block quote icon, whether we should stick with the quotes or we should go with the lines with the 3 bars. Participants struggle to find the block quote actions. Only 2 out of 9 could actually immediately use the block quote formatting. Some people thought the word block quote meant the code block functionality, so we're not 100% sure if that's a misunderstanding of the question or the action itself. Another thing was in the prototype itself, when you hovered over the menu items, it didn't have a tooltip that provided information on what the action was going to be. So this is something around education that tooltips provide users when they're trying to discover functionality in the application, kind of like this. Like if I hover over this, I should be able to get some tooltips. So something like this could really help people understand what that action could be. Yes, so that concludes the summaries and findings of this solution validation. Thank you for watching.